What maybe you could speak to love and relationship in your own life, but in general, if we look at Atlas Shrugged, if we look at Fountainhead, and maybe this is going to become a therapy session for Lex, but also just looking at your own life in a form of advice,
Sure.
how can you be a Rourke Reardon type character and do it, live your life to the fullest in creating the most amazing things that you're able to create, and yet have others in your life that you give yourself to in terms of loving them fully and having a family, having kids, but just even just the love of your life kind of thing. How do you balance those things together? Is there anything to say?
I'll say one thing because then I'll defer to Yaron because he's the one who's married here.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a balance. I think they complement each other and feed off each other. So it's like, how do you balance having shoes and pants? It's like, no, you want both.
You want it all.
And having
Absolutely.
a great partner who thinks you're a badass, and then sometimes they're on the stage and you're like, oh my, I'm married to a badass. That's the goal.
Yeah.
Am I wrong?
No, absolutely. It feeds off of each other. It's synergetic. It's completely synergetic. The problem that people have, I think, where they get into challenges is when they view them as opposites, right?
Yeah.
Work or family. Well, if you don't work the family, you can't finance the family. But more than that, why is your wife gonna love you? Right? What are the virtues that you're bringing? If you don't maximize your own potential, if you don't live the best life that you can live, what is it to love? And if she doesn't do the same thing, why do you love her? So you don't get this conflict between work and, how do I have a balanced life? Of course you have a balanced life. You balance it based on your values, and it's never going to be the same. The balance is, the time you spend at work and with family when you're young or when you have little kids or when they're grown up is all going to be different. It's going to depend on your priorities at the point, but it's all going to feed off of each other.
So maybe another word outside of balance is sacrifice. Do you think relationship involves sacrifice or no?
Does he know what he's doing?
I know. I think he's trolling you. He's a troll.
Trolling me?
He's a big troll. Lex is
Never.
the biggest troll on Twitter.
Ever
Sunglasses.
sacrifice.
Deal with it.
Never sacrifice.
But see, he means sacrifice in the
I know.
context. Yeah, okay,
So I'm going to define
Yeah,
sacrifice.
okay.
So sacrifice in my
Wait,
world.
can I say one thing before we get sidebar? Rand had a good example where he's talking about balance. So she was married to this guy, Frank O'Connor. He was not a cerebral. He was not intellectual. That's fine. She was in love with him. And I met someone who had been friends with Rand. And a lot of times she'd have these conversations with her acolytes till like 4 a.m. about the most cerebral topics. And I said, and he would always bring them food. He'd stay up and kind of sit there in a corner. And I go, when this was happening, was he sitting there like, oh God, here goes crazy old Ein, and I just got to be bored? And they go, absolutely
No,
not.
he
He was so proud of her. He was so excited. In fact, when she got a lot of money from, I think, selling Red Pawn, which was her screenplay, which never produced, he told her, you can buy any kind of fur coat as long as it's mink. He's like, you earned this, celebrate it. So that was a good example.
And that's a good relationship. Absolutely. No, sacrifice is the giving of a value and expecting either nothing or something less in return. You don't do that in a love relationship. Your love relationship is a sense, a trade. You're constantly trading. You're not trading materially, but you're trading spiritually. Imagine if I only gave my wife, if I gave spiritually and materially only in one direction. I'd get sick of it. She'd get sick of it. It would never last. It has to be in give and take constantly in different ways, right? Different values. It's not a monetary exchange, but it's constantly you're giving and you're receiving and you're giving, right? And that's gotta be in balance. And I know a lot of relationship where that gets out of bounds, right? And one party feels like they're giving all the time, they're sacrificing. They're giving more than they're receiving in a sense. And it's over, right? So now people use the word sacrifice, like Jordan Peterson sometimes he uses it both ways, right? That's the problem. People use it. I don't know him personally, no. Jordan Peterson, I said. I didn't call him Jordan, you see?
Just want to be clear.
Yeah. He uses it in his talks sometimes uses it as just as I described it, and he's supportive of that, like the sacrifice Jesus made, right? And sometimes he uses it as an investment. But it's not. If you're giving money now, expecting a bigger return in the future, that's not a sacrifice. That's an investment. That's why we have two concepts for that. And the same is true, if my wife is ill and I'm in, I've got a whole relationship built around what I'm giving. It's not that I'm not getting anything back. What I'm getting back is that she is recovering, right? Is that she is she's still alive, or whatever it is that I'm keeping. That's the value that I'm getting in return. If I'm not getting that, why am I doing it? Because I signed a contract a long time ago. So it's not a sacrifice. Children are not a sacrifice. If I don't go to the movies because I stay with my home with my kids, it's because I love my kids more than I love going to the movies, right? And if I love going to the movies more than I love staying with the kids, then get a babysitter or don't have kids, which is the better approach.
Here's
because
another trivia question.
Yeah.
What book did Ayn Rand say is the most evil book in all of serious literature?
Tolstoy?
It was Anna Karenina.
Tolstoy, yeah, Anna Karenina.
And the reason it was
right.
that book, which I haven't read,
right.
please correct me if I get the plot wrong. What Rand was saying is the plot is a guy who's a big shot, I think. He marries a stupid girl who has nothing of value to offer him at all, and she ends up killing herself. Whereas Rand's version, and we can take this out of the romantic context, I am delighted when I could be of use to my friends. It makes me feel wonderful, and not in a kind of parasitic way. It's just like that I'm at a certain point where they call me up, they're having a problem, and I've helped them with that problem.
Anna Karenina, he gives up the love of his life.
Oh, is that what it is?
Girl,
Okay.
The amazing girl. He has an affair with her outside of marriage, taints her, is married to the stupid, but she gives him the prestige and everything.
Oh, that's clearly very anti-Rand.
And the smart, real, the one he loves, she commits suicide in there.
Oh, okay, I got it wrong.
So it's about him choosing mediocrity and nothingness over this love.
And quality.
So pursuing your values is so crucial. So don't sacrifice that. It doesn't mean that if you want to eat Chinese and she want to eat Italian, you don't once in a while eat Italian on that day, right?
Noodles.
That's
Just get noodles.
That's silly, right? That's not a sacrifice, not in the sense in which we're talking about. That's, it doesn't mean don't compromise. It doesn't mean don't compromise on the day-to-day stuff. It means don't compromise on moral values. You don't compromise on the big stuff. And you never and you never sacrifice. And that way you have a relationship that's built as equals. And as you admire each other, and love at the end of the day is a response to value. If you stop undermining your own value, the person who loves you will stop loving you or love you less. If you love yourself less, you have to. Ayn also said, in order to say "I love you," you have to be able to say the "I." Right? You have to be somebody. You have to know yourself. You have to have value, and so love is a profound emotional response to value.